Hello everyone and welcome to Tom's Tomb of Horror. So it's time for another franchise ranking here on the channel, and this time I'm tackling one of my own personal favourite horror franchises, that is the Saw film series. I have ranked this series before on the Green Man channel, but I thought I'd tackle it once again as I recently rewatched the whole series on Blu-ray, and it kind of reminded me of, that ranking, and I decided I wanted to re-rank it here again afresh on Tom's Tomb of Horror. Now, I remember when the first film came out back in 2004, and it garnered huge success on a pretty low budget. And I think that Lee Winnell and James Wan successfully combined elements, the sort of sinister elements of a film like Seven, with the game and puzzle-based horror that you had in a survival horror film like Cube, for example, from the 1990s. And it was a bit of a lightning in the bottle moment in that era, I think, because extreme gore in horror was also becoming more and more popular, in that sort of era. So I'm going to be ranking these from my least favourite and number 10 to my favourite in the usual format. Do let me know in the comments what your ranking would be of these 10 Saw films. I look forward to reading those. This is just my own take on this franchise. It's likely to be different from your own. And if you're new to the channel, do drop a like and a sub. It supports everything I do here in the Tomb. So let's start this with my least favourite Saw film coming in at number 10. It's going to be Spiral from the Book of Saw. I feel like this is a very divisive film in the Saw fan base. Some people seem to love it, others not so much. I guess I'm in the latter camp there. I just feel like tonally it is all over the place. In some ways it's like it's trying to be kind of entertaining and comical, and then the next moment it's trying to be pretty serious, like it's trying to be more of a serious kind of crime drama. I just don't think it quite pulls either of those things off for this film. I do think it boasts some good traps like the finger trap, but for me, I just kind of, I don't get the Saw vibe, the classic grimy, dark, psychological vibe. It's just, for me, completely missing from this film, and it's why I don't really go back to it much either, and it's why it comes in as my number 10. Next up at number 9, I have chosen Saw 7, The Final Chapter, which is purely a guilty pleasure film at this point for me. Yes, it's not a great film, and I'm sure many of you have this as your least favourite Saw entry. But I get some fun out of this one. I think the traps are almost over-elaborate at times, like the Chester Bennington one, for instance, where you kind of got a trap triggering several other traps for the group of people involved. But it's kind of fun. I actually like the core kind of story of this one with the celebrity element and someone actually faking that they've been in a trap to get their with Bobby Dagan to get their sort of popularity, and I think that's very interesting, an interesting take. But for me, the film just doesn't quite work with the way it kind of tells that story. It goes off beam at times with other diversions. And like I say, you've got the pink blood actually in this one as well, which certainly was an odd choice, or however that happened. Seems a bit strange to me, which is why Saw 7, The Final Chapter comes in here at number 9. And my number 8, perhaps another divisive film here, I don't know, but it's Saw 4. Just don't feel like this one has a strong thread to it with the whole Detective Riggs story. And that for me was the biggest problem with this film, because I found that kind of distracting and not giving the film a whole lot of meaning behind it. And this felt like by this point in the franchise, it was becoming more and more trap heavy. And, as a fan of Saw and a fan of, the different traps and, how, how brutal they can be and how interesting they can be as well, it didn't quite work for me. Although, if you like Saw 4, fine. But yeah, for me, this one just didn't work with the Detective Riggs story. Did like the mausoleum trap at the start and the kind of whole Eric Matthews and Hoffman and Rigg thing at the end. I thought that was quite a cool finale. But yeah, for me overall, this one didn't work. So Saw 4 comes in here at number 8. My number 7 choice, I feel like it's a Saw film that had a ton of potential. That is Saw 5. And I really enjoyed the Strahm and Hoffman rivalry in this, but I felt the film kind of fell off a bit because it got very distracted with this kind of whole Fatal 5 stories, which felt like a reason to kind of introduce all the traps for this film. And I actually quite liked the Fatal 5 element, but I didn't feel like that worked alongside the Hoffman and Strahm story. I think that rivalry, if they focused more on that rivalry, I feel like this film would have been better and probably much higher up in my ranking here than just number 7. Yeah, so it's a film that I felt had a lot of potential. Love the glass coffin sequence at the end. That is a bit of Hoffman genius. Love or hate Hoffman, the glass coffin thing was absolutely a stroke of genius from Hoffman. And I totally get, the Seth Baxter thing at the start, given what Seth Baxter did to Hoffman's sister, I totally get why Hoffman was so motivated to kill him off so brutally. Because, if anyone did that to my sister, I'd be pretty enraged. wanting vengeance. I thought that's kind of an understandable motivation for the Hoffman character to have, and it kind of makes sense why he's so miserable as well. But yeah, an interesting entry in the franchise, lots of potential, but kind of ultimately a bit of a misfire. I can, however, watch this. I think from this point onwards, my top 7 here, all of these films I can kind of dig out and watch and quite enjoy them. I get something different from each of these. So coming in next at number 6 is Saw 3. Another entry in the series that I thought had a ton of potential and unfulfilled potential at that. I really liked the whole Jeff storyline, and that, and Jigsaw is testing his, his kind of wanting vengeance for what happened to his son. And again, a very understandable motivation for Jeff here with the sort of Saw victims he encounters and the reasons why they are in Saw traps. I kind of think introduces an interesting moral compass to this whole story. And yeah, some really gross traps. By this point in the franchise, they were starting to introduce some really brutal traps. Timothy Young's trap, absolutely brutal. The rack, twisting each limb off, kind of absolutely top brutality there. Really nasty stuff. And yeah, that's why Saw 3 comes in for me at number 6. Just didn't quite land the whole thing with all the cuts to the brain surgery stuff. I didn't think were always necessary, and for me broke the Jeff storyline up a little bit too much. So that's why Saw 3 comes in here at number 6. Now we get to my top 5. I love these top 5 Saw films. I feel like Saw has always been a franchise where I kind of love half the films, don't love the other half. And so that's why at number 5, we're going to start with one of my favourites here, which is Jigsaw from 2017. So I feel like this is kind of a bit like Saw 5, because you have a group of 5 people negotiating traps at the same time. You have this detective rivalry happening here with Logan and Halloran as well, and Ella de Bonville actually as well, a character I thought was a bit underused. I would have liked Eleanor to have been the apprentice, personally. I don't know if that's just me, but I just found her a more interesting character to watch in this film over Logan. But again, I thought Logan had potential, but it just didn't quite fully land. For whatever reason, I thought the Eleanor thing might have been a more interesting route to go down, personally. If they could have tied in a few more elements with her character, I felt that would have worked better for me. So, yeah, Jigsaw, though, still, I love the traps in this one. The cycle trap, particularly brutal, that Mitch goes through as he's lowered into that sort of mince machine. Pretty nasty stuff. Yeah, overall, kind of like, although I do prefer the films to look darker, more claustrophobic, and this one doesn't have that, a little like with Spiral. But I just think Jigsaw is a better story overall and a better executed film than Spiral, and keeps a more consistent tone. So that's why Jigsaw is my number 5. Coming in next at number 4, another favourite of mine is Saw 6. Love the whole William Easton thing, and again, kind of questioning, the moral judgments of William Easton, making him choose between people for who gets to live, who gets to die. And I thought that angle on this film was what made it more of a success for me. What made me like it more than some of these other sequels was that kind of had this unique angle on the whole franchise. It's not Jigsaw choosing this time, it's actually the person he's testing that makes the choices on who survives. I mean, well, Jigsaw is still laying the brutal human maiming traps, but, Easton is having to decide who lives and who dies in a lot of these traps. And I think that's a really interesting angle to take on the franchise, which is why Saw 6 comes in at number 4. Shotgun Carousel has to be my favourite from this one. Now, next up at number 3, we get to my top 3 here, and believe it or not, the original is my number 3, and it's rare that an original, I think, possibly features this low down in a horror ranking, but I have my reasons. But Saw was hugely successful, as I said in the introduction. I think it combined elements of Seven and Cube successfully. And I think that, the whole sort of minimalist element worked to its strength here, with Dr. Gordon being in that sort of enclosed space with Lee Winnell's character, who's just temporarily, the name has completely left me. But awesome setup and great twist. This one has the best twist, I think, of the whole franchise at the end. Superb, sublimely done. And really enjoyable moment for me. And Saw for me, though, I just have two films I slightly prefer. I think I'm more likely to revisit more often. That for me also have just sort of more of a thrilling element to them, which is why Saw just only made number 3 for me personally. Next up at number 2 is the latest, and this must be the only franchise where the 10th film in the series is as high as this at number 2. Absolutely fantastic sequel slash prequel, because it's sort of occurring between the first and the second film in this series. But what made this a success was, for me, the focus on, or the narrative on, Tobin Bell's as John Kramer's story, and letting Tobin Bell show off his fantastic acting in this film. But also Cecilia is fantastic, this new villainess, who is, as despicable. We kind of, as the audience, made to question who is the worst character here. A woman that's scamming people despicably, or a man that's putting people in human naming machines and claiming that you can survive if you've got that will to live enough. And who is the worst of these two? You're kind of made to question. You end up kind of rooting more for Jigsaw here, actually, which is an extraordinary position that the film manages to get you into. And love the reintroduction of Amanda. You also do get a cut to a scene with Hoffman if you watch the credit sequence, which I didn't realise when I first saw this film in theatre, because I actually left before the credits rolled, or just as the credits were rolling. I love this entry. I think it's great. And it also has, for me, some of the best traps, the most intense, the most nerve-wracking traps. When I was watching this in the theatre, when Valentina's trap was unfolding, it brought back memories of the first film when I saw Amanda's traps, and how intense that was, how anxious it made me feel. And as I was experiencing it, afterwards, I kind of got this weird sensation of like this thrill of feeling like I was watching the original film again in 2004, and absolutely loving it. That is Saw X. What an amazing sequel to have so late down the line. Like Saw's comeback, this was for me, in some style. So anyway, enough of that. Saw X is my number 2. It's my runner-up, but my number 1 probably will always be my number 1 now in this series, but Saw X is so close behind it now. That is Saw 2, which has a special place in my heart. I love Saw 2. I love the house setup, the sort of booby trap setup, the way that, you have everybody in that survival kind of survival setting, a bit like Cube did, which is another one of my favourite horror films of all time. Saw 2 just has a lot that I personally love about it. And, a lot of people will cite the needle trap as their most feared one, but for me, actually, something about the razor box trap with Addison in towards the end really gave me the creeps when I first saw this film. And everyone says, how she shouldn't have been so stupid and everything. I mean, it's worth reminding her that she was really kind of under the influence of the poisonous gas or whatever it was at the time, and I also just found the shock of seeing her with her hands in there, not able to escape, as just quite a horrifying visual thing, just alone to look at, and then the sort of the frantic camera, the sort of frantic camera shots as well. It was just really kind of panic-inducing stuff there towards the end. That creeped me out a lot as back 20 years ago now. But I love Saw because it has the cube, the escape room, the kind of collector thing going on about it, and it's got a good narrative and a great twist. The great twist at the end of this one. So all those things just make me love this entry. And also, Mudvayne's song, Forget to Remember, kicking off that credit sequence, is a great metal track to end this one on. So yeah, that's my Saw film ranking. Let me know yours in the comments, as I say. Otherwise, from me, until next time on The Tomb, it is bye for now.